Over 60? Discover the 4 shocking fruits to avoid and 4 amazing ones that transform your health. Helen sat at her kitchen table, eyes glued to the glowing screen of her tablet, her heart racing with disbelief. Apples? She murmured, the word tasting bitter in her mouth. The health scare had flip-flopped her world. A near miss with a heart issue, a visit to the doctor that was supposed to matter-of-factly reassure her. But the craving for knowledge turned into an inner storm as she unearthed revelations about the fruit she once considered wholesome. Cherries, pears, bananas, food she prepared with joy for her grandchildren, could harbor hidden dangers that haunted her now. Was she feeding her family poison? Helen's passion for nutrition ignited a fire within her, propelling her toward this revelation, but it came at a cost. Her adult children, Jonathan and Lisa, exchanged worried glances every time she brought up nutrition at family gatherings. "Mom, you're getting sucked into one of those internet rabbit holes," Lisa would say dismissively. Their reluctance chipped away at her confidence, leaving her questioning her sanity. Was she losing it? Or was she simply trying to save her grandchildren from the legacy of ignorance that had plagued her own upbringing? The ghosts of her past surfaced, memories of her late mother battling diabetes quietly behind a stoic facade. Guilt twisted in her stomach. Had she unknowingly passed down these unhealthy ways to her children and grandchildren? Each bite of pie and scoop of ice cream she had once lovingly offered now felt like a betrayal. The emotional weight stirred dread in her heart. What if her grandchildren, treasured and bright-eyed, faced the same fate? As Helen struggled with the clash between her quest for healthier living and the skepticism from her family, she met Greg, a local nutritionist whose easy smile and genuine demeanor drew her in. Their connection blossomed in the coffee shop where she always felt at home. "Food doesn't have to hinge on fear," he smiled, urging her to embrace adventure in the kitchen instead of dread. With each enlightening conversation, Helen peeled back layers of her outdated beliefs about food, feeling her spirit yearning to break free from the constraints of her past. But with liberated thoughts came rising tension. Each time she shared her discoveries with her family, it felt like pushing a boulder uphill. "Mom, stop trying to fix what isn't broken," Jonathan would lash out, frustration radiating from his posture. Why was she being met with resistance as she sought to carve out a healthier path, not just for herself, but for their family legacy? Why is change so daunting? Helen's voice quaked during one dinner, vulnerability laid bare. Her questions hung in the air, pressing against the family's tight bonds. Would they welcome this change or recoil? She felt the storm crackle around the dining table, their silence crouching menacingly, whispering doubts. Was she breaking the mold or shattering their comfort? The realization dawned with a sting. Perhaps she was not just transitioning into a new way of life, she was redefining her identity entirely. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. With eyes locked, she pondered the price of transformation. The war of emotions played out vividly. What stood before her was a question not solely of health, but of love. Would breaking the cycle of unhealthy living maim their family's ties or uncover a deeper bond? In that moment, staring into the eyes of her children, Helen felt the ache of possibility and pain intertwine, wondering if her courage would lead them toward unity or rip them apart. The weeks slipped by, each day marked with the quiet tension that simmered in Helen's home. Conversations at the dinner table grew stilted, the chatter her grandchildren once filled the space with replaced by an eerie silence. Helen continued to venture deeper into nutrition research, collecting information the way an artisan gathers materials to craft a masterpiece. With each new discovery, superfoods, gut health, the importance of antioxidants, her confidence swelled, yet the burden of her family's reluctance weighed heavily on her shoulders. Visiting the local farmer's market became her refuge, a vibrant mosaic of colors and scents that ignited her culinary enthusiasm. She reveled in conversations with farmers about their harvests, learning which fruits and vegetables truly nourished the body. Each visit fortified her resolve that she was on the right path, even as the shadows of doubt loomed larger during her interactions at home. She now felt as if she were walking a delicate tightrope, balancing her newfound passion against her family's skepticism. One Saturday morning, emboldened by her expanding knowledge, she decided to throw a healthy brunch for Jonathan, Lisa, and their families. Helen meticulously planned the menu, focusing on the vibrant fruits and vegetables she had come to cherish, determined to showcase how delightful healthy food could be. She imagined the faces of her family lighting up as they tasted the refreshing smoothies and hearty salads, the flavors bursting with life. But as she prepared, gnawing uncertainty crept in. Would they embrace her new perspective or push her further away? As they gathered around her table, the atmosphere carried a palpable tension. She smiled brightly, offering her homemade dishes as if they were treasures woven with care. "I've got a surprise for you today," Helen announced, her heart thudding loudly in her chest. The initial reactions were lukewarm. Jonathan raised an eyebrow as he cautiously eyed the zucchini noodles and kale salad. "Is this not pasta?" he inquired, incredulous, glancing meaningfully at his sister. "Just try it," Helen urged, her voice a mix of excitement and apprehension. "You'll love it." Beneath the laughter and ribbing, she sensed the underlying resistance they felt toward the changes she advocated. Jonathan took a bite, then another, his face a mix of fascination and reluctance. "It's not bad," he conceded, a small crack appearing in his facade. Lisa, however, appeared unmoved, still digging into the traditional brunch dishes she felt so deeply comfortable with. The clash of old and new hung thick in the air, like a dark cloud waiting to rain. In that moment, frustration bubbled within Helen. How could they not see the potential that lay before them? The dissonance between her vision and their reluctance evolved into a choking dread. No longer was this merely about nutrition or family legacy. It was about acceptance, love, and the fear of losing their connections. "Why can't you just let me do this?" Helen broke the silence, her voice steady but eyes burning. A mix of confusion and anger surged through her. "You both seem so afraid of change. I'm just trying to help us all be healthier." Jonathan set down his fork, an exasperated sigh escaping his lips. "Mom, you need to understand, we appreciate what you're doing, but this is overwhelming. Not everyone can just flip a switch." A weighty silence settled over the table, the air electric with unspoken words. Helen felt the push and pull of her emotions, the hope of transformation clashing with the reality of resistance. What she had envisioned as a turning point had devolved into a confrontation. Just as she opened her mouth to respond, Greg's words resonated in her mind. "Food doesn't have to hinge on fear." She paused, suddenly aware that her passion might be met with fear rather than enthusiasm. How could she approach this differently? "Maybe I need to learn to share this journey instead of forcing it," she thought, a poignant realization dawning on her. But before she could voice those thoughts, she noticed Jonathan's face take on a more serious expression. Was he finally willing to have a deeper conversation? The moment felt pivotal, a chance to bridge the widening chasm. As she met his gaze, a new door of possibility began to open, revealing secrets she had yet to explore. Would they confront the fears together, or would Helen find herself navigating this journey alone? The silence was thick, punctuated only by the quiet clinking of forks against plates as Helen wrestled with the weight of Jonathan's eyes boring into her. His expression had shifted, but it was ambiguous, a flicker of curiosity battling against the shadow of judgment. She took a deep breath, striving to ground herself in the purpose that had driven her to this moment. "Look," she said, her voice steadier than the tremor in her heart. "This isn't just about healthier eating. It's about all of us feeling our best together. I want us to be vibrant and alive, to share that life." Her urgency pressed against her words, suffusing them with layers of hope and desperation. Lisa finally glanced up, skepticism etched on her face. "But why does it have to change so drastically? Can't we just enjoy our food without feeling like we need to overhaul everything?" The familiarity of her words echoed the very doubts Helen was trying to dispel. "I love food, Lisa," Helen insisted, the passion layering her tone. "I'm not trying to destroy the joy of eating. I'm trying to enhance it. We're conditioned to think health is synonymous with deprivation. It's not. It's about rediscovering flavors." As Helen spoke, she realized that if they were indeed to open a dialogue rather than a debate, she would have to unwind her approach. The transformation she craved, for herself and her family, could not be enforced by will alone. If her family viewed her passion as imposed rather than inclusive, she'd built walls where she could have constructed bridges. "Why don't we try integrating some of these dishes into our traditional meals?" she proposed, suggesting slowly, weighing each word. "Let's blend the old and the new. I'll cook a familiar family recipe alongside something new and exciting." She observed Jonathan's eyebrows lift slightly, the initial skepticism blurring with unexpected intrigue. "2 for 1 special?" he quipped, attempting to lighten the atmosphere. "Exactly," Helen laughed softly, her mood lifting. "We can have the best of both worlds." Lisa leaned back, arms folded thoughtfully. "Okay, but it sounds like a lot of work," she hesitated. "What if we just start with 1 meal a week, or even every other week?" Helen's heart surged at the potential threat of compromise. "I'll take that. I'll research meals that don't compromise flavor, I promise," she said with fervor. "And I can guarantee a refreshing twist on favorites." The conversation positioned itself like the first rays of sunlight piercing through a stormy sky, fragile but full of promise. Though the obstacle of resistance lay ahead, a formidable challenge in its own right, Helen felt emboldened by the small victory, the possibility of inclusion wrapping around her like a warm embrace. Yet despite the reprieve from confrontation, Helen couldn't shake the nagging feeling of inadequacy. Would she truly be able to guide these changes while respecting their established views on health? The next few days saw her become a whirlwind of preparation, mapping out strategies that integrated their family recipes while infusing them with her newfound wisdom. The process was exhilarating, but Helen also sensed the boundaries of fear re-establishing themselves. In her quest for nourishment, how would she ensure her principles didn't alienate the ones she cared for? As she navigated the grocery aisles, one particular fruit caught her eye, a vivid dragon fruit with its spiky exterior, a symbol of the bold journey she was on. As she held it, a thought threaded through her mind. Was she brave enough to integrate the unfamiliar, the vibrant, and perhaps even the controversial into her life, as well as her family's? With dragon fruit in hand, she recognized she stood on the precipice of not just culinary transformation, but of her own identity. The crossroads ahead beckoned with excitement and uncertainty. How could she balance her evolving self while fostering a relationship founded on understanding? Determined to face this new challenge, she scribbled down yet another plan, this time addressing the essence of flavor within the authentic context of familial bonds. What lay ahead? Would they embrace this fusion, or would old habits snatch the opportunity away like a delicate soufflé collapsing? She arrived home with new vigor, but also new questions. The air was charged with possibilities, and as she prepared for their next meal, little did she know what revelations the upcoming family dinner would unveil. The moment had come. Could she truly celebrate food while honoring the roots that nourished them all? Helen stood in her kitchen, a whirlwind of ideas and emotions converging within her. The vibrant dragon fruit sat on the countertop, a bold testament to her resolve, its tough exterior belying the sweetness within. As she began to chop and prepare the ingredients, She let the rhythm of her actions settle her racing thoughts. Each slice of the knife against the chopping board felt like a deliberate strike against doubt. She was on the path of not only changing the way her family ate, but also how they thought about nourishment. But as the familiar scents of garlic and herbs wafted through the air, her mind wandered to the reaction she might get at dinner. Would they embrace her creations, or would they balk at the changes she was bringing? The tension clung to her like steam from the boiling pot. Determined to infuse excitement into the evening, she settled on a plan. A harmonious blend of their beloved family casserole and a fresh, unconventional side dish featuring her newly discovered dragon fruit, contrasting the traditional tastes they cherished. The juxtaposition of old and new mirrored her internal struggle. She sought to honor her family's past while fearlessly forging a new culinary pathway. As the hours crept closer to dinner time, Helen's stomach churned with equal parts anticipation and anxiety. She could control the food's flavor, its presentation, but could she manipulate the atmosphere, the mood at their dining table? Preparing a meal was, after all, not just about nourishment. It was an emotional dance, teetering between acceptance and rejection. When the family congregated around the dining table, she swiftly introduced the evening's offerings, each dish a crafted story they would share together. Tonight's twist includes our famous casserole, and on this platter, meet the vibrant dragon fruit salad. She presented it with pride, her hands trembling slightly, as if presenting an artwork to a discerning audience. Lisa's eyebrow arched again, skepticism rearing its head as she forked a piece of casserole. Jonathan leaned in, encouraged by the colors and flavors on his plate, a flicker of intrigue evident in his gaze. "Okay, I'm game," he said, nodding toward the dragon fruit. As the first bites were taken, the silence returned, thick but charged with unexpressed opinions. Helen's heart raced. She waited, emboldened and terrified, for their reactions. Would her culinary gamble pay off, or would it flop spectacularly? After a few moments, Lisa's flush of skepticism gave way to surprise. "Wow, this is actually refreshing." A flicker of pride ignited within Helen. But then came the critical moment. Jonathan reached for the dragon fruit salad with a twist of curiosity on his face. "This looks interesting," he said, his fork piercing through the bright pink flesh. That curiosity was precisely what Helen sought to cultivate, an openness to new experiences. But as she noticed Jonathan's initial delight, quickly guided by the reconsideration of flavors, a pit formed in her stomach. With the familiar satisfaction of the casserole, would he shy away from the adventure she endeavored to undertake? Helen's heart dipped into uncertainty. While they continued to eat, each silent nod and subtle smile revealed hidden reactions. It was in those moments that she questioned the essence of success. Acceptance? Creativity? How often did personal growth overpower the comfort of routine? With her passion increasingly couched in fear of flattening their joy, she shifted tactics mid-meal. "What do you think we could change next time?" she asked, voice calm yet steady, determined to steer the conversation towards an exchange rather than a presentation. As they chewed, pondering her question, Helen apprehensively scanned each face. Did they see her? Did they understand the message behind this meal? With every answer that rolled off their tongues, she realized that this evening was not merely about food, but rather a deeper conversation unfolding, bridging generations of eating habits and individual identities through nourishment, each forkful a step towards mutual understanding. Just as the conversation began to flow, the doorbell rang, slicing through the spell they had been unwinding. Who could it be? Helen felt a ripple of tension. Would her carefully constructed dinner be disrupted? She glanced at her family, hesitant to break the growing connection they had begun to forge. A new visitor, an uninvited variable, threatened not just her meal, but her entire approach. What would this person add or take away from their delicate thread of acceptance? Tentatively, she rose from her seat, wondering how the evening would morph now. How could she hold on to the fragile progress made in this moment, while facing an unexpected pause? Helen hesitated, the doorbell ringing like an urgent alarm, a disruption of the fragile harmony she'd begun to nurture. Her heart raced as she recalled the thoughtful exchanges, the possible breakthroughs facilitated by their shared meal. She forced herself to steady her breathing. Would this new visitor unravel the tentative acceptance they'd begun to forge at the table? Pasting a smile onto her face though her stomach churned, she walked to the door, every step weighted with uncertainty. As she turned the knob and opened it to reveal her neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, she plastered on a warm facade. The elderly woman stood with a basket in her arms, offering it with a bright smile. "Just thought I'd drop by with some fresh muffins. I know your family loves my berry oat recipe," Mrs. Thompson exclaimed, her voice cheerful and inviting, unaware of the inner storm Helen faced. "Thank you so much, Mrs. Thompson," Helen replied, accepting the basket, her mind racing. Each muffin was another reminder of the past, a comforting presence, but also a challenge to her aspirations. Did she dare blend this old favorite into their new dining experience? She stepped back, allowing Mrs. Thompson to enter. "We just had dinner, but I'm sure everyone would love to try a muffin," Helen said, trying to keep her voice steady despite her mounting anxiety. As the door closed behind them and Mrs. Thompson joined the family at the table, Helen felt an incoming tide of complication. Would her family gravitate towards the easy familiarity represented by the warm muffins or remain engaged with the new flavors she was introducing? "Wow, this looks interesting," Mrs. Thompson remarked, lifting the dragon fruit salad from the table, her eyes twinkling with curiosity. Helen felt a flicker of hope. If another person could embrace her attempt, perhaps her family would too. Yet, with her loss of control over the dinner scenario looming large, anxiety crept back. As Mrs. Thompson leaned forward to sniff the salad, Helen's hands fidgeted nervously under the table, betraying her mounting apprehension. "Try the muffins first," Lisa interjected, her voice unexpectedly urgent. "They're a classic." The nuance in her tone stirred discomfort within Helen. Would they indeed retreat into the safety of familiarity? The hopeful warmth from Lisa felt like a soothing balm and a troubling warning at once. A questioning gaze flitted between them. Had this meal become a battleground between the new and the old? As the evening wore on, the expansive table turned into a juxtaposition of flavors and expectations. Muffins and casserole dulled the vibrancy of the dragon fruit salad, creating an atmosphere that reeked of nostalgia, a longed-for simplicity. Helen felt small amidst the growing comfort and safety that surrounded her family with every muffin that vanished. "Maybe we could add muffins to next week's dinner," Lisa suggested, eyes bright and unassailable. "We've always enjoyed them." Helen's pulse quickened. That suggestion hit her like a bolt. Add muffins? What about the new? She swallowed hard, her throat constricting around the walls she had built around her culinary vision. Could she embrace the contrast, or would she allow herself to be swept away by tradition yet again? The discussion about food began to circle, and she could feel the stakes rising, the tensions of her desires battling within. To speak up was to risk losing their affection for her creative endeavors. To stay silent was to lose herself. With the family's laughter mingling with Mrs. Thompson's stories about baking mishaps, Helen felt the stirring of determination. This distraction could be her turning point. "Why not combine different flavors, create a fusion for our dinners?" she finally proposed, her voice steadier. "Imagine a new casserole topped with muffin crumbles." They paused, thought rippling through them as Helen's heart raced with trepidation and excitement, wondering whether she had crossed a threshold. Would this redirect their path, or was it too much too soon? The moment hung in the air, charged with a promise of something more, when Mrs. Thompson suddenly glanced sideways at her. "You know, my late husband used to say that the best meals happen outside comfort zones. What do you think?" she asked, her tone suddenly serious. Helen felt a spark ignite within her as she recognized an ally in Mrs. Thompson, a kindred spirit who understood the significance of culinary evolution, alluding to something deeper than mere food. With a steadying breath, Helen braced herself for the next step in this unfolding dialogue. What would her family decide? Would they venture into innovative culinary territories or retreat into familiar comforts? The room was charged with possibility as the tension between comfort and change simmered. Just as it seemed the conversation might turn toward transformation, another knock echoed from the door, demanding attention once again. Helen's heart raced anew, a fresh wave of anticipation coursing through her veins. What awaited there now? And how could this next visitor alter everything she had worked so hard to build? Helen's heart raced in rhythm with the approaching footsteps, eager yet apprehensive about the new visitor at the door. The first instinct was to brace herself, to prepare for another disruption of the fragile peace she had started to cultivate. Yet something deeper stirred within her, a burgeoning confidence, an emerging resolve that quenched her instinctive urge to retreat. She turned her back to the table, her breath quickening. The cookies and muffins on display were merely the overture to something more profound. Mrs. Thompson had ignited a flicker of hope, a manifestation of collaborative possibility. Yet, the pulse of acceptance from her family still felt tentative, like threads waiting to be woven into a tapestry of culinary inclusion. With an inhalation drawing from her newfound strength, she opened the door. This time, it was Mark, the local food blogger known for his keen insights into culinary experiments. His presence electrified the room. "Hey, Helen! Heard you were hosting a dinner. Mind if I join?" Helen's immediate inclination was to say yes, to welcome an enthusiastic critique, yet she hesitated. Would his expertise be an asset or a threat? On some level, she questioned whether he would champion her visions or scorn the attempt at blending the old with the new. She led him to the table, conscious of the muffins that now seemed like relics from a less sophisticated culinary era. "You know, I have to say," Mark began, eyeing the dragon fruit salad appreciatively, "this is exactly the kind of dish people need to start embracing." Helen felt gratitude wash over her. At least one person inside her home understood the mantra of innovation she wished to proclaim. She watched her family's reactions. Their eyes darted between the vibrant salad and the comforting muffins. A silence filled the air, heavy with unvoiced opinions. Mark picked up a dragon fruit slice, his blue eyes sparkling with intrigue. "Why not create a dish that tells a story?" he suggested. "Something that captures both tradition and experimentation." Helen's mind raced. Storytelling through food. What a concept. She could already envision contrasting flavors lying beneath a golden, muffin-esque topping, enticing not just her family, but their collective pasts. What if the muffins could be just a part of a greater fusion? We craft deeper layers, blending flavors to narrate who we are? Across the table, silence gave way to contemplation. Lisa spoke up, hesitantly at first. "You mean, like a dish that goes beyond just taste? Something that connects our family's favorite memories?" "Yes!" Helen felt the energy shift. The tension dissipated. This was her moment where their culinary past could intersect beautifully with a modern take. Mark's enthusiasm surged. "Incorporate spices, each representing a different memory. It's not just about taste. It's about evoking emotions." The conversation flowed, growing richer as family members began reflecting on past meals recounted fondly through laughter and nostalgia. But then, Helen felt a twinge of doubt claw back at her. Would this enthusiasm drown out her original intentions? Would the family's ravenous embrace of historical flavors stifle her vision of culinary transformation? Resolving to reclaim her voice, she took a breath and spoke. "Let's not forget the importance of innovation in our efforts to connect. The flavors can be vibrant. They can challenge comfort while honoring the past." The room resonated with her declaration, a ripple of understanding stirring beneath the surface. Yet, the lingering uncertainty remained. Would her family accept this challenge to their comfort zones, to elevate the everyday into an experience of cultural growth? Just as they were poised to dive deeper into discussion, the atmosphere thickened with anticipation when suddenly another series of knocks sounded, breaking the moment. Helen could feel her heart race again. This time it was not fear, but a surge of potential change. Who was it? What new element would arrive to shake up her fragile plans? Helen's heart drummed in her chest, the sound both exhilarating and nerve-wracking. She glanced at Mark, who raised an eyebrow, intrigued by her sudden shift in focus. The tension in the air was palpable, but beneath it lay an undercurrent of anticipation. She took a moment to remind herself of what she had just begun to cultivate. This was not just about cooking, but about weaving a narrative that embraced both her family's history and her vision for transformation. But the knock at the door could change everything. Cautiously, she approached the door again, each step weighted with potential. Seizing the doorknob, she turned it firmly and swung the door open, revealing a familiar face. Mrs. Thompson, her neighbor. But behind her stood two more figures, a couple whom Helen recognized from the local farmer's market. "Oh, sorry to intrude," Mrs. Thompson smiled, somewhat sheepishly. "I brought some of my herb-infused oils, and I thought you might like to try them for dinner." Her excitement was palpable, but still, Helen felt an uneasy flutter in her stomach. The potential overload of opinions and ideas felt daunting. "Welcome! Please, come in," Helen invited, trying to keep her voice steady. She stepped aside, ushering them into the living room, where the culinary conversation was still pulsing in the air. Mrs. Thompson entered, her eyes immediately alighting on the table. "Wow, Helen, is that a dragon fruit salad?" The two guests moved closer, inspecting the food with genuine interest. It took only moments for the conversation to ionize, with each individual offering their insights, experiences, and tastes. Helen smiled, trying to lead the discussion into the creative territory she envisioned, but the weight of her own ideas felt suddenly overshadowed. Doubts prickled at the edges of her confidence. Would she just be another voice among many, her vision diluted by the group? She watched Mark engage eagerly with the newcomers, while her family appeared equally enthralled. As they began tossing ideas back and forth, creating a homemade oil infusion for the dragon fruit salad, enhancing the muffins with gourmet spices, Helen's heart sank with each contribution. The original idea, her very own culinary experiment, felt fragile, as if it would shatter under the collective weight of their excitement. But a thought flickered, sparking the embers of her determination. Was she really willing to let this moment slip away? The heritage of her cooking lay not just in the hands of others, it existed within her too, waiting to be asserted. She breathed deeply, choosing to ground herself in the very foundation of her craft. "Your ideas are inspiring, really," Helen said, injecting a new energy into the dialogue. "But what if we incorporate those contributions while still evolving the entire dish? How about a unique oil drizzle that reflects both tradition and experimentation?" The room halted for a moment, eyes shifting back to her, registering surprise, admiration, and support. She could see the change, a shift in their perception. This idea allowed space for innovation, enabling her own vision to emerge from within. Taking a step back, she observed the whirl of creativity unfolding around the table. Helen realized that introducing her voice could mean a rebalancing rather than a clash. Her insecurities began to dissolve. She felt stronger, more assertive. Yet, as the dialogue deepened, she noticed Mrs. Thompson's thoughtful expression shifting to one of concern. "It can't be easy innovating while honoring tradition, Helen. Aren't you concerned that some flavors might clash?" A surge of doubt struck again. This question wasn't merely about flavors. It was fundamentally about identity. What parts of her would she keep intact amidst the changes? This was the heart of her culinary journey, a delicate dance between innovation and familiarity. But there was no time for self-doubt. As she opened her mouth to respond, the doorbell rang. Another interruption, further deepening the swirl of uncertainty and excitement. This time, though, it wasn't fear. It was the promise of further complexity. Who was at the door now? And what impact would they have on her culinary metamorphosis? With her heart racing but determination ignited, Helen moved toward the door, bracing herself for whatever new challenge awaited her. Helen took a deep breath, steadying herself as she swung the door open. There stood a tall man, with shaggy hair and a weathered face marked by time. He wore a simple apron over his jeans, a farmer's cap perched jauntily on his head. In his hands, he cradled a large basket, filled with an assortment of fresh vegetables and herbs, glistening with the promise of the season. "Hey there, I'm Tom from the Green Acres Farm. I heard there's a culinary venture happening here and thought I'd drop off some of my freshest harvest." His voice was warm and inviting, but Helen's stomach tightened at the thought of another distraction. "Wow, thank you, Tom. That's incredibly generous of you," Helen replied, her smile feeling more like a mask than a genuine expression of delight. As she stepped aside to let him in, she felt marked by the weight of her previous visitor's questions lingering in the air. Mark leaned forward, curiosity sparking in his eyes. "What do you have in there?" Tom grinned, slowly revealing the contents of the basket. "You won't believe the heirloom tomatoes I just picked, and a handful of radishes, the best you'll ever taste. Oh, and I brought some freshly cut basil, too." The aroma wafted through the room, teasing her senses and igniting her culinary instincts. Helen felt herself pulled into his enthusiasm, but the claws of self-doubt scraped against her resolve. How could she innovate under the glare of so many opinions? The cumulative weight of everyone's expectations pressed down on her, and she feared losing her voice amid the clamor of all these fresh ideas. Yet, as she scrutinized the vibrant vegetables, something shifted within her. Each ingredient represented a story, a flavor, a possibility, an invitation to combine her heritage with the creativity sparking around her. A voice inside her asserted itself, emboldening her resolve. "Let's make something together," she suggested, voice firmer now. Glancing around, Helen could see their receptive faces. It was not a competition, but a collaboration, and perhaps that had been her misconception all along. What if she could carve out her space in this swirl of creativity? "Let's create a dish that brings together all we have," she proposed, focusing on how the heirloom tomatoes could complement her dragon fruit salad with a zesty infusion. As she outlined her vision, she saw eyes light up around the room. Tom chimed in. "How about a layered salad that showcases both fruits and vegetables? We could create a fusion, something that honors tradition yet pushes forward." Caught in this wave of excitement, Helen felt the pressure lift slightly. They were now building a narrative together that allowed her to root her innovations in heritage. Her idea, once encumbered, aired itself as a fresh canvas for all to explore. However, underneath the discussions of what to create next, vestiges of doubt simmered in her mind. Mrs. Thompson's words echoed, "Aren't you concerned that some flavors might clash?" Helen pursed her lips, fighting against the swirling anxiety. "It's not just about getting it right," she thought. "It's about learning and growing, isn't it?" She began actively questioning her approach to flavors, understanding that experimentation meant accepting the potential for failure. As they brainstormed, crafting the layers of their fusion salad, a challenge arose, arranging them in a way that complemented and contrasted visually and texturally. Mark chimed in with ideas for presentation while Helen mentally shaped their culinary ambitions into a masterpiece. In that moment, it dawned on her that achieving success wasn't merely about culinary triumph, but about stripping away layers of self-doubt and deferring to her instincts. Yet a lingering feeling settled deep within her gut, a reminder that not everyone would be supportive of her fusion culinary approach. She looked at her new companions, excitement mingling with anxiety. What if this fails to resonate with everyone? The question hung over her like a storm cloud, threatening to rain doubt on her growing confidence. Just then, Mark broke through, sharing a suggestion that turned heads and redirected their focus. What if we make a section of the dish a nod to the past, while the other half celebrates the bold new flavors? The vibrant chatter around them surged again, but the tension still coursed through her veins. Helen seized the moment, propelling herself forward into decision-making, mindful of everything at stake. As they collaborated, every new idea challenged Helen to consider her culinary identity anew. For each spark of innovation, she faced the uncertainty of external reception, questioning what elements of her heritage she might have to defend. Closing her eyes briefly, she imagined the moment of tasting their creation. The mingling of flavors, the aromas, and the vibrant display resonating with who she truly was as a cook. But would it be enough to silence the lingering doubts, both hers and those of the others? The door creaked open once more, drawing her attention to a figure at the threshold. With a heart brimming with possibilities, she turned, wondering yet again who else might alter this chapter of her culinary journey, and how it could reshape everything she aimed to create. A stocky woman stepped into the kitchen, her hands clasped around a small, intricately designed box. "Excuse me," she said with an air of authority. "I'm Brenda, from the local food magazine." Her voice demanded attention, and Helen felt the room shrink slightly. Brenda wasted no time. "I've got wind of the culinary project unfolding here and wanted to see for myself. I need to know if this fusion trend is worth writing about." "Your reputation precedes you, Helen." Pressure slammed against Helen. Was she here to praise, criticize, or simply to judge? Thoughts flitted through her mind, ambition intertwined with the nagging fear of falling short. Could she navigate this unexpected scrutiny while still cultivating her voice and style? "We're currently working on a layered salad that features heirloom tomatoes and dragon fruit," she offered, desperation creeping into her tone as she searched Brenda's face for approval. "Interesting combination," Brenda remarked, her fingers drumming against the box. "But what makes you think it's innovative? This is a saturated industry, Helen." Helen's insides churned. The ground she had begun to carve out was shaking. She could feel the walls closing in, the weight of expectation teetering on the edge of despair. "It's a nod to my heritage," she partially divulged, "but also an exploration of merging, contrasting flavors." Brenda nodded, seemingly unconvinced, but her sharp gaze remained fixed on Helen. "And who are you trying to please? The audience? The critics? Yourself?" Each question lashed at Helen's resolve, forcing her to confront what lay beneath her culinary endeavors. Helen's breath caught in her throat. "I want to share something authentic," she managed, grappling with the shifting tides of her self-doubt. "I want to bridge tradition and innovation." Yet even as the words escaped her, Helen could feel how fully they'd been ensnared by concern for others' opinions. Brenda tilted her head, a smirk teasing her lips. "Remember, authenticity doesn't always equate to marketability. In a world craving novelty, are you ready to abandon the familiar flavors? What's your plan for showcasing your distinct identity amidst the noise?" The question sent ripples through Helen's thoughts. Was she standing on the brink of her journey, or was she veering into the territory of commercialism? As Tom and Mark engaged in lively conversation about the ingredients, Helen withdrew into her mental cacophony, questioning everything from her approach to her very identity as a chef. Just then, inspiration struck. Why not represent both sides? Her voice cut through her haze, emboldened by a fleeting clarity. "I can make layers that symbolize the past while allowing the present boldness to shine. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It can tell a story." Brenda's eyebrows arched in surprise. "Now that's intriguing. But will the flavor be harmonious? Will you stand by the choices you'll make?" The storm of doubt in Helen's mind began to settle into a newfound determination. She pictured the dish again, layering not only food but also intention behind her culinary craft. This wouldn't be an easy transition, but perhaps it was time to face the duality of her culinary identity. "I'll embrace the risk," she asserted, as much to Brenda as to herself. "I want my dishes to have depth, to provoke and evoke feelings. I want to celebrate flavors without fearing the clash." With that declaration, Helen felt an internal shift, one that was less about outside validation and more an exploration of her true essence as a chef. The fear still loomed behind her, whispering doubts, but her conviction ripped through them. Brenda tapped the box thoughtfully against her chin. "Interesting. I'd like to see how you bring that vision to life. But remember, you'll need to defend your choices against the critics." Expectations weighed heavily, but Helen was prepared to craft something that resonated with her core. With Brenda watching expectantly, Helen's resolve solidified. As they ventured back to the creation table, Helen caught a glimpse of who she could be. The path ahead was clouded with uncertainties and potential distractions, but it was now marked clearly by the commitment to her ambition. Would she be bold enough to claim her identity amidst the trends, or would fear pull her back into the shadows? With every heartbeat, she felt closer to her decision. The kitchen buzzed around her, infused with the energy of collaboration, but Helen's heart raced in anticipation. Would she fully embrace the opportunity before her, or would self-doubt once again hold her back? The answer loomed just beyond reach, waiting for her to make the first daring move. Helen stood at the edge of a precipice, caught between her past and her future. The kaleidoscope of vibrant colors on the table mirrored the complexity of her journey. Each ingredient, every flavor, represented not just culinary choices, but personal transformations. As Brenda's presence loomed and challenged her culinary convictions, Helen felt an unfamiliar but steadfast resolve cascading through her. "Let's embrace the unexpected," she declared, her voice slicing through the uncertainty that had clouded her culinary vision. "Let's create layers that honor tradition and pay homage to innovation." Her heart surged as she articulated her purpose. She was ready to elevate her artistry and establish her identity as a chef uniquely attuned to the evolving landscape of food. The conversations at the table morphed, the energy shifting towards collaboration rather than competition. Tom began slicing tomatoes with newfound enthusiasm, while Mark added suggestions for flavor pairings. Inspiration illuminated the space and sparked a flurry of ideas. Helen watched her family engage with the process, their initial skepticism dissipating like steam from a boiling pot. The liberation she sought was within reach. In the following moments, creativity flowed like an unstoppable river, pushing boundaries as they combined vibrant ingredients to create an awe-inspiring dish. Helen felt a series of triumphs unfold, firm slices of heirloom tomatoes layered with the colorful dragon fruit, sprinkled with herbal oils, dispensed lovingly from Tom's treasured collection. With each careful arrangement, she rediscovered flavors that resonated deeply within her, flavors that told a story born from both heritage and aspiration. But as they plated the final dish, Helen felt her confidence wane momentarily. Would they truly embrace this concoction? Her eye caught Jonathan, who hesitated at the edge of the table, a blend of anticipation and concern etched on his face. She stepped closer, grounding herself in purpose. "This is a dish born from vulnerability," she explained earnestly. "Each layer represents our history while inviting us to step beyond it." A flicker of understanding crossed Jonathan's expression, and as he took the first bite, his eyes widened. "This is actually delicious," he murmured, disbelief mingling with surprise. Helen's heart soared. As the family and her new culinary companions joined Mark in sampling the dish, laughter and enjoyment erupted like fireworks. This was more than just a meal. It was a celebration of flavors, harmonizing with experiences. Each forkful tasted like acceptance, like love, a tangible expression of growth unfurling before them. Helen felt recognized for the first time. Her ambition and craft validated not just through their enjoyment, but their engagement in the creative process. Brenda nodded approvingly, acknowledging Helen's accomplishment as a renewed vision emerged. "This," she said, "demonstrates what true culinary art is about. Congratulations on encapsulating identity, innovation, and connection." Helen beamed, allowing her heart to swell with pride. Her transformation had been recognized publicly. With the meal concluded, lingering scents swirling through the kitchen, Helen felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. This evening had unveiled her true potential, and reaffirmed her journey toward a nutritious approach to family meals. No longer burdened by skepticism, she had carved out a niche for herself that embraced both creativity and belonging. In that moment, standing amidst her family, amidst new friends, and receiving validation from Brenda, Helen understood that she had truly achieved a significant victory, not just in culinary accomplishment, but in reconciling her past with her aspirations for the future. Filled with newfound determination, she declared, "Let's not stop here. Let's explore new flavors together every week." Smiles erupted around the table. Each person nodded, excitement radiating as they envisioned what was to come. Helen had not only transformed her approach to cuisine, but also reconciled the delicate balance of her identity as both a nurturer and an innovator. She had emerged from the shadows of doubt as a vibrant force, prepared to craft culinary narratives that echoed love, acceptance, and adventure. In that pivotal moment, Helen found herself fulfilled, established, and recognized both personally and professionally, an authentic gastronomic storyteller. As the evening wrapped up amid laughter and plans for future endeavors, she knew she had built more than just a recipe. She had crafted a legacy of growth for her family. Now more than ever, she felt determined to celebrate who she had become while honoring where she had come from. This was the moment, her moment to rise. And for you, if you want to continue to support Helen's inspiring journey and witness more stories of personal transformation, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and let us know in the comments your reactions and theories about this incredible conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this continuation of courage and growth.